Welcome back to Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with the most, the beast with the least. Least we can do today is, as promised, jump into It's a Wonderful Month and celebrate a whole month. Every single day we're going to have a little bit of Jimmy Stewart. By a little bit, I mean by my standards, these videos will be relatively short. My standards perhaps not being the same as other people's standards in more ways than one. So Rope, 1948. Why start there? Because why not? I was debating should I start with my favourite, but then you think, well, why? It's all downhill from there, isn't it? Or should I start with the most popular? Again, then you can kind of fizzle out and people might not be interested as you go along. So I decided just to do whatever tickles my fancy on said day. So there'll be no rhyme nor reason. We won't be doing the 4 Hitchcock'S in a row, for example. I'll just plumb for one each day, and that'll be the one we'll look at. So them be the ground rules. So here's Rope. Now, as you've seen from the thumbnail, should you have watched it, I have it in a little film canister here, which came in this behemoth. And then there's all sorts of memorabilia and whatnot in this brochure book. But this isn't a Hitchcock month, so I'm not going to be looking at all that. We're going to talk specifically about Rope. There we go. Nothing Ever Told held you like Alfred Hitchcock's Rope. In colour, by Technicolor. So yeah, 1948. Let's see if we get some information in the back. Hitchcock's first colour film, of course, 9 different takes. That's one thing that a lot of people will go on about with this film, is the technical aspect over anything else, over story, over performance. Anything else is overshadowed by the fact that it's presented as one continuous take. Quite revolutionary for its time, very daring, because Hitchcock does use the cuts every 10 minutes will be the back of someone, it'll zoom on someone's back literally, and then when it pans back out, that's a different take. You've maybe not realised it, or you maybe have, now you're looking for it, but so sometimes the picture will be a little bit blurry and give it away. Sometimes the audio dips a little bit because it's 2 takes that are being mixed in, but for 1948 it's done pretty seamlessly. And again, Rope is filmed as though it is what do they call that? The 24 effect, where everything's done as though it's happening in real time. That's it, real time. So, except for the opening credits, the picture was filmed entirely in a soundstage. The opening credits were of a street shot, and then everything else is in the apartment with the party from hell. The film was shot in several uninterrupted takes, yeah, we know that, and due to the implied homosexuality of the main characters, the film was banned in a number of American cities. Oh, we can't have that, can we? Homosexuals in American cities. God, imagine if they got in San Francisco. Again, let's come back to that, let's not let that pass. The original play from 1929 was set in Britain, but it was based on an American case, the Leopold and Loeb murders, which was filmed by Orson Welles independently in quite a different take, which is quite a good companion piece to this if you want to see it from a different point of view, with much more onus on not quite fact, but certainly a slightly more dramatic tale than something a bit more you can say gimmicky if you like, and certainly meant for entertainment purposes, such as Rope. The homosexual undertones in the original play weren't undertones. It was explicitly said that they had a relationship. John Dow and Farley Granger, who played Philip and Brandon, our main villains, our murderers, were both believed to be homosexual in real life. And certainly that's how John Dow in particular plays the part. Very flamboyant, he's very mannered, he's very Niles Crane almost. He camps it up. So Hitchcock finds a way, like John Huston did in The Maltese Falcon, to tell you that the characters are He'll drop in lines about them having spent evenings together over at each other's places, and they're going up to the country together, and everybody talks about them as if they're a couple. I mean, there's one line about John Dahl having previously had a relationship with the one young lady in the film, but with Joan Chandler's character, but that's very much, I think, to appease the censors, just so they can say, see, they're not gay. He used to go out with the only young woman in the picture. There are 2 intentional cuts which are done, and those were done because you can cut from backs to back, but eventually the actual reel would have to be changed by the projector anyway. So Hitchcock probably said, with that kind of dark sense of humour, hey, we might as well, let them know that we can do it and then break our own rules. Why not? Let's rope. So again, 2 young guys plot what they believe to be the perfect murder, based on the premise that they are morally obligated to do so because of overcrowding, because of having strong breeding, and just a sense of moral superiority. Really, they're just sociopaths, especially John Dahl's character, who was a terrific actor. He was in Gun Crazy and things, but he never quite made it beyond the next level. Farley Granger, on the other hand, did have a very good career, including working with Hitchcock again on Strangers on a Train. He's terrific in that. But again, we're here to talk about Jimmy Stewart this month. So what Jimmy Stewart's role in this is he's their mentor of sorts. He used to teach them, and he's now a sort of family friend, and it doesn't pop up until about half an hour into the picture, and the picture's only about an hour and 20 minutes long, but there are deliberate things in it to make it seem like it's a bit longer, like during those takes, for example, where I say it zooms in on somebody's back and then zooms out, and it's actually a completely different take, but you don't realise it. They've changed the back setting, the paintings in the background, so that now the setting outside looks later in the day, and then later in the evening, and then night time. So that all happens in a much shorter space of time than would naturally occur, to give that sense that the film is actually longer than it is. And really, it was just to make their jobs easier, and so not to stretch the material too thin. So it's a bit of, to quote the film itself, cat and mouse. But as Philip reminds us, as Farley Granger's character reminds us at a certain point when he's had a few too many, yes, but who's the cat, who's the mouse? So these 2 young sociopaths kill their friend. This is how the movie starts, so it's no spoiler to tell you. Kill their friend David, and stash him in a chest of drawers, and that's the chest. They're going to have a party that evening, and they've invited people around, including David's parents, and they're going to serve appetizers and things off of this chest with their dead son in it. I mean, you're talking real sociopathic shit. The mentor of the 2 characters, as I said, is played by Jimmy Stewart, and they've invited him, or rather John Dahl has, Philip has, because he thinks that he needs someone to bear witness to his, he almost needs to know that Rupert, Jimmy Stewart's character, if he can't spot the perfect crime, then it really is perfect. But as Farley Granger really assesses it, he says you just needed someone to almost catch you. You needed to be recognised for your genius, which, it's the 1940s here. You're probably not going to be too surprised to learn that villains must have a comeuppance under the Hays Code. One criticism of the film over the years is that Jimmy Stewart, he's supposed to have taught these boys the kind of lessons that they would have picked up that would lead them to do something like that. When he's introduced and he's meeting the family of the deceased, he doesn't know the deceased yet and things, he does give very glib answers on, the nature of life, and that he believes that murder is acceptable to reduce the surplus population, to paraphrase Charles Dickens. But when push comes to shove, is he really going to stand by that, or is he going to do the decent thing and bring justice down upon Father Granger and John Dow for what they've done? Well, in case you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it, because it's almost got that kind of noirish aspect of we know they have to be doomed because of the Hays Code, but who are they going to bring down with them? They've already done poor David. It's another very bold thing that the film does. David dies at the very start. We start on the street, a real life street, and then it pans up and we hear a scream with the curtains drawn in a balcony, and then when the curtains open, David's already been strangled and keels over dead. So he's billed first in the credits in the end. It's quite remarkable. The players, and then David's listing. He's gone. So he is the inciting incident, his death, and everything revolves around it from that point. Jimmy Stewart, as I said, came in for a little bit of criticism, because although you can believe that he would have the nous, not literally, the NOUS, the news, to suspect and probably prove that these two have murdered David, you never quite believe that Jimmy Stewart would have ever taught this kind of sociopathic behaviour. He is presented as being on an intellectual level with those two, and Jimmy Stewart wasn't that kind of actor. He was probably at his best when playing Salt of the Earth. And I'm not saying that means he couldn't play bad, because he did in many westerns. It could be morally ambiguous, but his characters tended to almost always have an earthy intelligence, regardless of their intentions, good or bad. It tended to be, the most obvious example would be Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. But it didn't seem to come from book learning. Jefferson Smith did learn from books to become a lawyer, but ultimately it's learning the Washington dirty game that teaches him his real lessons. Whereas here, Jimmy Stewart's presented as just a true intellectual who would teach this kind of disgraceful sociopathy and almost eugenics-like idea, where it's about breeding and eliminating lower forms of classes. I don't know. I think it does work, and maybe it's biased because I just love Jimmy so much. But I think that because we don't see those earlier lessons, because we just meet him now, you can kind of believe that maybe, as we see in The Party, he likes to be a little bit flamboyant himself, not in the way that John Dow does, where it's quite flamboyantly gay, but quite flamboyant in his controversy. He likes to shock. He'll say things just for the sake of getting a rise out of people to see their reactions. He's quite rude and short with people, knowing that they probably won't get his the undertone of what he's trying to say. I think that Jimmy was actually perfectly cast for that idea. If you take the premise that he's therefore more of a detective in this scenario, that he has to be the one to rationally think about motive, about the actual clues, about knowing these two guys and knowing how they act normally as opposed to how they act now. And we get that. There are plenty of scenes, take away the whole technical aspect, there are plenty of scenes in which Jimmy Stewart, something will happen, Father Granger will have a bit of a freak out, and then the camera will stay on Jimmy Stewart's reaction for a few moments afterwards while he just, as if there's something wrong here and I'm not quite getting it, but I'm retaining it and I'm putting that piece with this piece. And I think Jimmy pulls that off because he was a university graduate himself, wasn't he? So Jimmy Stewart wasn't a Tom Joad type. He very much could have if his career had gone differently, pulled off that kind of intellectual type role. It's more typecasting than anything else at that point. I mean, he's gone from being, pre-war kind of America's sweetheart in the Philadelphia Story, Mr. Smith. Post-war, he's already played George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, which wasn't a massive hit, but he's done that, and he's now looking to pick darker roles. And his next movie will be Call Northside 777, which again was dark. So he's intentionally picking morally ambiguous and stretching roles, and I think you should applaud that rather than just complain that it's not his type. I don't think that if you look at the larger context of Stewart's career, that criticism holds up terribly well. If you look at it purely based on his black and white folksy days, then yeah. But if you look at his more the broader spectrum, especially once he'd completed things like the Anthony Mann westerns, and even some of his later westerns, right up to Fool's Parade, I think that's what it's called, with a very young Kurt Russell in the 70s, then I think you can very much say that, yeah, he pulled that off well. So for me, it's a fantastic performance from Jim. Again, we don't need to go into the ending, because that things will go south for our two leads. It's just it's not a whodunit. It's a it's not a how did they do it. It's a how they getting caught it. It's a Columbo basically. It follows that kind of idea. And yeah, it's a terrific adaptation of a wonderful play. The BBC did an adaptation for radio in the 1980s with Alan Rickman in the Rupert role, which is well worth hearing if you can ever track that down. Alan Rickman does carry off that upper crust society type who you can imagine would be able to teach that sort of eugenics idea to students and have the charisma to get it across. Whereas, in this, I get the impression if Jimmy said it, he was doing so with a very dark sense of humour, and these two are just such sociopaths, they never picked up on it. And again, that's me reading into it, but hey, that's what cinema and art in general is all about, is our interpretation. So, that's episode 1 of It's a Wonderful Month. Again, we're not going to go, I've still gone 17 minutes on this, but a few minutes of it was me laying the ground rules for the coming month. So every day, I'm going to pick a different one, and obviously I'm not just going to review Rope again every day. Do you want me to just have 31 different ways to review Rope? Tomorrow we're going to look at it from a feminist perspective. That would be good, actually, because the way women are treated in this is quite, so listen, if you have watched, thanks very much. If you're a first time viewer and you are tuning in for It's a Wonderful Month, then bless you and welcome. If you're a recent subscriber, thank you very much. And I have picked up quite a few recently. I have been concentrating on music. It's just been on my mind a lot, and part of doing Jimmy Stewart Month is to make me get back into movies and music concurrently as well. At some point during the month, as promised, I'm going to combine the two by doing the Glenn Miller story, so we're doing music and movies. Episode 1 in the can. Hope that got a few insights across if it wasn't too much of a ramble. Hope you got something from it, and Jim and I thank you for watching. But tune in tomorrow and we'll see what I pick. I don't even know yet, it's quite exciting. Will it be, Mr. Kruger's Holiday or Five Goes West? I don't know. Will it be that TV movie with Bette Davis? I don't know. Anyway, I'll go and decide because I need to watch it tonight so I can tell you about it tomorrow. I'm not even cheating, I'm rewatching them even if I've seen them 100 times, which means I'm going to have to watch some of the sadder moments as well. But it does mean I get to watch one of my favourite movies of all time. Well, a couple, but probably my absolute favourite of all time, which, I'll tell you what one that is in a couple of days when we come to it. But until then, folks, let's be very careful out there. Love and mercy, my friends. Love and mercy. Goodbye, my dears. See you tomorrow.